Welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Stephanie Scolaro. This has been an extremely busy news week once again. I have a feeling that the next 4 years are going to be very newsworthy, especially if we keep up with this pace. Unfortunately, as we were preparing to come to air today, we've had an American aviation tragedy occur overnight in D.C. at Ronald Reagan Washington International Airport. In fact, I saw it on the news yesterday, live last night, just after it happened. And as dawn came today, we've been able to get a lot more information about what actually happened. In fact, there was breaking news right before we came on air tonight, and they said that, in fact, the night before this crash happened, so that would make it Tuesday night. Tuesday night, another plane had to divert to avoid crashing into a helicopter. And it apparently was another military helicopter. So for those of you who are just now starting to hear about this plane versus helicopter crash, I will give you the basics of what we actually know now. So last night around 9 o'clock in the Ronald Reagan Airport area, an American Airlines plane was in the process of landing. And at the very same time, a military Black Hawk helo was taking off to head out on a routine training exercise for night vision. We do not know if the flight crew was actually wearing night vision at the time of the crash. I don't know if they'll know that. It may be on the black box recordings once they get the black boxes. I'm not sure. There were 64 passengers, including crew, aboard the American airline number 5342 from Wichita, Kansas. And there were 3 crew members, Army members aboard and it was an Army Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk from Fort Belvoir in Virginia. And as of 6 p.m. tonight, it was confirmed that all are dead. 67 people that's a total of both airplanes or airplane, helicopter that were in the crash. So everyone in both of those vehicles are no longer with us, unfortunately. The NTSB is on the scene currently, and they do have control of the crash site itself. They gave a press conference at 3:30 this afternoon, which I was able to watch. And they said that they do, in fact, have a lot of information, a lot of data, but they are going to go through their process and will present and then provide all of the facts as soon as they have looked at the entirety of the evidence. They do not have the black boxes from the aircraft yet, as they said they are still underwater. The actual aircrafts, both of them, are underwater, and the dive teams are focusing on recovering all the victims from the crash site itself first. And apparently it's been very, very, very cold in the water, so it makes it tougher on the divers to stay down long periods of time. So they have to keep coming up for breaks to warm up and then go back. The NTSB also said that they've had great rapport with the president and vice president, the secretary of transportation, and the defense secretary, and that they're all working together with the FAA to find out the actual cause of this accident. Okay, those are the basic facts of what happened. So here's my take on it, okay? When I first saw it happening, as soon as it happened, I was like, oh no. Who was on the airplane? Who was on the helicopter? I bet somebody important was on that plane or that helicopter. It's sad that my first thought is, oh no, they killed somebody on purpose because they were on these flights. That was my first thought, a conspiracy theory, basically. But that tells you the state of our mainstream media. I don't trust it. I went to school for journalism. I have a degree in it. I mean, it's sad. It's very sad. So as it turns out, a lot of the passengers that were on the airplane were members of the United States skate team, their coaches, some of their parents, and other athletes. The helicopter had 2 fairly experienced soldiers flying the helicopter and another soldier on board for that training that they were doing. So immediately this morning, I watch it last night. I go to bed. I turn on the television, the news this morning, and immediately you've got MSNBC trying to blame the crash on the new Trump administration. I mean, are you kidding me? The man's been in the job for what, 8 days, a little over a week. Okay. And, and they have the transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, was just sworn in yesterday. And Pete Hegseth for the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Defense, was just sworn in the day before that. I mean, they probably don't even have their offices yet. They don't have anything. They've not even been able to go sit down and go through paperwork or find out processes or anything. They're just showing them where everything is right now. So, I mean, it's just disgusting to me. And then the worst thing was, so President Trump comes out and gives a press conference, and he started the press conference out by saying, I would like to take a moment of silence in honor of the victims of the crash and their families. And they did a moment of silence, which I happen to think, honestly, I was surprised. I was like, wow, he seems a lot, since being shot, he seems a lot more thoughtful of those kinds of things now. I've noticed that. I mean, he was always sympathetic to people, but even more so now. I noticed this. So I thought it was nice. But after he did the moment of silence, he got right into all the information about the crash that they knew at that moment, what they had discussed with the transportation secretary, what they had discussed with the Secretary of Defense, just that they'd met with the NTSB. And then he starts criticizing the FAA because he said, I fly a lot. He goes, I flew a lot before when I lived in New York, before I was a president. And, why was there a helicopter flying at the same altitude as an incoming plane? It makes no sense to me. Then he starts criticizing, the previous administration. He said that they took out, as soon as they got into office, they took out, he said, I specifically did a lot of work on the FAA and getting our aviation and our airlines back up to the good standards that we used to have. Because he said the Obama era destroyed it. They were working on TSA as well. He said as soon as the Biden administration got in there, they took out all his work that they had done. They had all these new policies in place. He stripped them and decided that they wanted to have DEI in place. Okay. So of course, CNN has to chime up and Caitlin Collins, God love her, and she has to make some comment. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation? And he said, no, I don't. It's common sense. They removed my policies of finding only the best of the best to do these jobs. Okay? When you are a controller up there, an air traffic controller, I mean, I've known this since I was a kid. It is known as one of the most stressful jobs in the world to be an air traffic controller. This particular airport is one of the busiest, and they have helicopter stuff coming in for training. They do training flights out of there, and they have all kinds of different planes. There's a lot of different military aircraft coming in and out of there. It's extremely busy. So that's why the president was like, what's going on here? So then he says something about the previous transportation secretary, who was Pete Buttigieg, and I will quote what he stated. He said, he was a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a really good line of bullshit. That's a quote from the president. Okay. So later on in the news, you have these senators coming out going, they all use the same word, the same phrase. It turned my stomach that he tried to politicize this. Turned my stomach. Listen, you can take your virtue signaling self and shove it, okay? Because the facts of the matter are this, and I'm going to read it to you. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Look it up. They're actively recruiting people with disabilities, which I don't have a problem with someone in a wheelchair or having to use a crutch or has a false limb that has to get in there or has some other, type of disability that doesn't affect the fact that you use your brain a lot, and it has to be quick, and you need to be able to make quick, confident decisions. You have people's lives, hundreds of lives in your hands at all times. Okay. So he says this and they're criticizing it. No, it's true. It's absolutely true what he's saying. They actually turned down 1,000 applicants for the FAA that were extremely qualified because they were white men. I mean, that's blatant discrimination. Blatant. And now look what happens. Look what happens when you hire people because of the color of their skin or whatever makes them different, rather than hiring them simply because they're very good at the job or they're very qualified to do a good job. That should be the only qualification for any job. So then you find out that they're understaffed in the tower. They were understaffed in the tower. There's supposed to be 30 guys up there at all times, right? Because they have helicopter military stuff going on and they have regular civilian stuff going on. So they do separate, they have some doing military and some doing the others. And they only had 19 guys up there. That means somebody's doing two jobs. That means several people are doing two jobs. So ultimately, I believe that we're going to find out that the reason for this crash is communication. It all has to do with communication. They didn't have enough people in the tower, and the guy who was communicating with the helicopter and the plane, when he said to the helicopter, "Hey, do you see flight whatever right there? Do you see him? Confirm." He's like, "Yeah, I see the flight." And there was a flight that was taking off right in front of him. He didn't see the other flight coming in on him. So the FAA guy should have been saying to him, the controller should have said, "Do you see the flight at your 10 o'clock?" Or wherever position he was in. Communication. So that's what we know right now. I'm sure by the time this is finished and you see this, we'll know a lot more on this. And I just wanted to talk about DEI a little bit because I really hate it. I really think it's a ridiculous idea. I love the fact that you want to be more inclusive of people, which is wonderful. As long as they are qualified to do the job, then have at it. That's how I feel about that. Here's an update on the LA fires. So here's the latest on the Pacific Palisades, Alameda, Malibu, all the places that were burnt to a crisp. Looks like the LA mayor, Karen Bass, is up to her old California trickery again. So after promising the residents in front of the television news and all of us and the president of the United States and saying that these people would have access to their homes very soon, and that, she was willing, the president said, "I want to have a special master in charge of the federal funds that are going to be given. And then I want to have some of these firemen and the policemen and some of the people here to be on that committee of people. And I want to have, and he's appointing Rick Ronald to be in charge of that since he's from California and he's represented California. So he knows all about it." So that's what was agreed to in front of everybody. But guess what? She decided and had a little statement. She has decided that the area is going to be rebuilt by an outside consultant. She made the decision and announced it, okay, without any conference or conversations with the local residents who have lost all their properties. She's never discussed it with any of them, okay? Had zero input from the residents who live there and pay the taxes and own the property. So then she shows up on an unannounced visit there in Pacific Palisades with this guy. and introduces him as the Chief Recovery Officer, Steve Soboroff. Okay, that's the guy that she appointed. So again, she was supposed to have this panel of people put together that represented the residents, the fire people, and the police to make sure we're following all the right codes, laws, whatever. And somebody was going to be appointed as a special master to handle the money by Rick Grinnell. Well, I guess she still has a different idea on that because she's hired the outside consultant to handle significant rebuilding contract. This firm, this is a quote from the guy, Steve Soboroff, this firm is going to handle the wildfire recovery process, including damage assessments, monitoring air and water quality, interacting with various federal agencies, and ensuring that the city gets as much federal reimbursement as possible. The city will decide on the firm by this week. Okay, what? I don't know what to say about this other than California, you better wake up. Wake the hell up. California, wake up. It's very disgusting to me that they are not doing anything about it. I was going to say something about all these hearings that we had today in Congress. I had some things to talk about, but I think I'll save that for the next time because I really wanted to talk to you guys about something that I happened to find by accident as I was looking into the whole thing on how ICE is handling, deporting people that are here illegally. And have you ever heard of Colony Ridge? I haven't heard of Colony Ridge before. So when I started reading about what this was and what it has to do with illegal migrants, I just about passed out. I just can't even believe this is happening in the United States of America. Okay. So Colony Ridge is a large housing development. Okay. It's about 40 miles north of Houston, Texas. Okay. It's so large. It is almost the size of DC. I saw photos or actual video of it from a helicopter, and they showed how humongous this place is. And from what I was reading, I believe they have the developers of this place has more than one of these in the United States. I have not confirmed that, but I did read that was what they do have. So the developer of this neighborhood is a guy called John Harris. Okay, he's partners with his brother Trey, and I think there's a cousin that's also a partner, Paul. They give illegal migrants direct home loans so that they don't need Social Security numbers, okay, to obtain a loan. It is a full-on, this place, Colony Ridge, is a full-on cartel hub and is full of gang members and their associates, okay? And they say that there are up to 75,000 plus illegals living in Colony Ridge right now, and it is the fastest growing development in Texas. So Glenn Beck heard about this and decided to do an in-depth report on it. Okay, so Blaze Media, who's Glenn Beck's company, goes in and does a report. Him and his producer go in there. It's called Terrenos Houston by all the immigrants. That's how they refer to it. Okay, Colony Ridge is what we call it. And it's 30 minutes outside of Houston. And Houston is the United States' fourth largest city. That's just a point of reference. He says, also, Glenn Beck points out, Texas is the biggest and most red state in America, and nobody seemed to even care about it. When they got there, nobody was like, what about it? They were just like, huh? What about it? So what they offer, what this guy and his company offer, okay, is no credit required, limited ID. You can be a foreign buyer. All you have to do is give $500 down, and it's a 12.9% interest loan. Anybody literally can buy a home in this development. Okay. So I made an error on the names of the owners. The CEO is John Harris. He's partners with his brother Trey and his cousin Kevin, not Paul. He says to Glenn Beck, there's about 35,000 living there, and the majority are U.S. citizens, and they are just seeking the American dream, and that the people in Colony Ridge are better Americans than Glenn Beck's viewers. He also says they don't check to see if they are, in fact, U.S. citizens, because if they have a driver's license and a social security number, they qualify. And they're just trying to provide something to those at the bottom. Okay, which is, hey, that's all great. That's great. I appreciate that. Okay. So Glenn Beck goes into the development. Him and his producer go in there. Actually, his producer goes by himself with another camera person. He said, it looks like you're literally in Mexico. It doesn't look like a housing development here in the United States, with like street lights, lines down the middle of the street, gutters, the whole thing. No. He's like, it looks like Mexico. There's just pavement, basically. Some roads are not really paved very well. No street lights, nothing. He said there's zero regulations. There's live animals all around, stray dogs roaming. The homes, there's no code there, obviously. They could build it however they want. So if they personally go in there and build their house however they want to build, which is a lot of times what they do in other countries, they just build them. If they can get the blocks and the cement and whatever else they need, bricks, they can build it themselves. He said a lot of homes had businesses attached to them, right? So he literally went up to one business where the lady was running like a taqueria out of the front part of her house. And he asked her, so how long have you been a citizen? She goes, oh, no, I'm not, in Spanish. And, well, do you like it here? Yeah, it's better than it was in my country. Yeah. Well, there's rumors that you hear gunshots all the time. She goes, yeah, all the time. Uh-huh. He says there's people burning trash everywhere. And the guy who's reporting was a soldier in Afghanistan. And he said people do that in the neighborhoods out over there because they don't have sewage. So it's a smell that you get used to smelling. So that's telling him there's no sewage there, right? So he asked her, are most of the citizens people here from the United States? And she said, no, probably from Mexico or other Central America or South America. Okay, so then Glenn Beck goes and meets with two women that actually bought a home. They're from Puerto Rico, and they bought a plot of land, and they were supposed to get the house, right? And they run a website that's called Terrenos Houston Demanda, or lawsuit, okay? They're two sisters, Sue Ellen Sanchez and Kayla Sanchez. They said that Colony Ridge is a nightmare and that they're lied to. They were told that the land would include everything like set up, okay? Meaning the house, the basics for the house, the lights, the sewage, electric, water, and sewage, okay? Basically, it was just raw land. They got there and it was a plot of land, sand, okay? So the DOJ took up these girls' complaint, and they're suing Colony Ridge for luring Latino buyers for self-finance loans and setting them up for default. They falsely advertise that the lots are sold with all of the infrastructure for a home, water, electrical, and sewage. So this guy, John Harris, gets back on and says he doesn't advertise outside of the United States. And the sister says that's a lie. In fact, they advertise on social media in Colombia. And they showed Glenn Beck this video of a girl in Spanish and translated it for him. And she's saying, come to America and live your dreams. Okay. So, I mean, how do you say that this is not a scheme? I mean, I'd be willing to bet this guy's in with the cartel. So Glenn Beck leaves, okay, and goes and talks to John Harris after he talks with these women. And she says, he has his translator call the number that the girls had from the commercial. The translator calls, and the lady on the phone tells her in Spanish, she goes, hey, I want to buy land, but I'm illegal. I'm not a citizen. Can I still do it? And the lady goes, yeah, no problem. You just need $1,000 and the passport or ID from your country of origin. So they're literally advertising for illegals to come and live here, and they don't care. So Beck goes back and questions John Harris about the neighborhood and says, well, you're also telling people that the crime in the neighborhood has gone down. In fact, that's not true. There's murder and theft that's gone up. So Glenn Beck goes and talks to the local sheriff, and he's like, listen, the cartel is there. What they do is they come out of the neighborhood and go to Houston and commit all the big crime. Okay. He said that this place is a literal hub for sex slavery, human trafficking, and drugs. And the majority of the residents are illegal. So the superintendent of schools of the county there says that they are at crisis levels in the school district because there's so many people living in that area. He said that they make up 10% of the population of the entire school district right now. And they have estimated, the school district estimates there's about 80,000 people that are illegal living there. And by the time that that place is completely built out, they will have more than 50,000 students in their school district just from Colony Ridge. So, I mean, what is this telling you? We have people actively living in the United States working with probably our own government, because how are they able to get away with that? And nobody's going in there. Nobody's doing anything about it. You're going to tell me the Governor Abbott of Texas doesn't know that this is going on? I don't know. I know why it's being allowed in the last administration. So I have a feeling that Tom Homan, okay, the border czar, is got a plan for that place. And, you know, I actually feel very bad for the people that just really took the bait and moved here illegally and are living in the United States. They've probably invested their life savings in their house or their business that they have there. So here's my personal opinion on what I think they need to do. Yes, I do think that ICE has to go in there. I think it's going to be very dangerous, and I feel absolutely awful for just the regular families, you know, people living in there trying to earn a living and live a better life. So I hope that they stay in their homes and they are safe when they do this. I think anybody who has a criminal record while they have been here in the United States needs to be kicked out, period. If there are people there that are illegal, they should still be allowed to live there. But now they have to have stipulation in order to become a naturalized citizen of the United States. They have to be sort of like on a probation, a legal probation. And if they break whatever those rules that they set for them, then they will be shipped out. So I think they should be given a chance for citizenship, but they should not come before people that have been in line for years. So it may be a long time that you'll have all these standards to meet, but you will be able to get there. And I wish them the best. So next time on Straight Talk, I will get into the hearings that just happened today, and they're the big ones. RFK Jr., Kash Patel, and Tulsi Gabbard. And there's going to be a lot more information, I believe, in the next couple of days to come out over what, you know, went on in all the hearings. And we should probably know a little bit better of where they stand as far as being confirmed. I hope to see all of you back with me next week on Straight Talk Reloaded.